Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Schilling bringing this week's Wednesday Wellness Minutes, and we are super excited to be with you to talk about what's growing in your gut, because we all have one, and there's a bunch of stuff growing in there. And understanding what's going on the inside is really important because it'll determine what reflects on the outside. My attempt in this is to give you the best understanding of general breakdown of, we call it the triad of health, like structural, biochemical, and neuroemotional. And so I'll do my best as far as that goes. I'm going to break up into three sections. Sort of the upper GI, the middle GI, and the lower GI. Different things are going to affect you on different spots in your GI system. Your GI starts in your mouth, okay, because it's basically a tube. If you took your digestive system out and you spread your mouth to your anus, it's one big tube, like a garden hose, okay? But it winds like 25 to 33 feet in your small intestine. And within that, you are estimated to have 100 trillion different bugs. Okay, and those are mostly there for helping us. They need to be our immune system because 80% of our immune system lives in our gut. However, when they get imbalanced, that's when we start having symptoms. It's much more complex than I could ever begin to even describe to you on this short little snippet. So I'm going to do my best to bring it down into some simple bites, if you will. The bacteria and other things in your mouth determine how well you break down your carbohydrates and things like that. Different enzymes start in your mouth and then set up your digestion. So even smelling, thinking, chewing gum will actually cause your digestive system to start working and things like that. So you want to be aware of everything you do can affect your digestive system in some way, shape, or form. So we're going to skip, not necessarily skip it, but we're going to start and jump down to the stomach, because stomach is a major area of problem for a lot of people. A lot of people have gastroesophagus reflux disease. It's called Geerd, or they have acid reflux, heartburn, indigestion, things like that. When you think about the stomach, you think about a sack, and you think about food that goes in your mouth. Once you chew it, it goes down into your stomach. And if you have an imbalance of, let's just say a nanobacterium like H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, that can decrease the acidity in your stomach. And why is that a problem? Because most people that have acid reflux have too little acid and not too much acid. So that's kind of the first step and one of the major steps for a lot of people as far as imbalances there. Now you could have easily some liver flukes or some other type of parasite that runs back and forth from your spleen to your liver and your pancreas and stuff like that, and they can affect your stomach as well. But for the sake of an easy example, H. pylori can affect your stomach, and when that acid level drops, the stomach muscle on the top called the pyloric sphincter, the aortic sphincter, which because it's close to your heart, it doesn't close very well. So that's a structural issue. So when we talk about the triad of health, structural, biochemical, neural, emotional, the top of the stomach is a muscle, and so if there's a structural issue like a hiatal hernia where part of the stomach gets stuck up in the diaphragm, that's a structural issue. Why did it get there in the first place? Usually stress, but when you think about that muscle, needs a signal from the brain to tighten up, and if there's not enough acid, it doesn't get that signal to the brain to say we need to close up. If it's stuck up in the diaphragm, it can also mess up the signal between your brain and your stomach so it doesn't close off. So those are a couple easy things there to think about. So we have a biochemical, we'll think about low acid and excessive bacteria called H. pylori, or we can have a structural where the stomach is slightly jammed up in the hiatus of the diaphragm, or we can have the neuroemotional, which is, we'll call it indigestible anger and frustration on the stomach. That's a big problem for a lot of people. So that's kind of the start of your digestive system once it gets past the mouth into the stomach. A lot of cases of SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which basically means some of the bacteria in the colon got into the small intestine. And that's usually because of a fancy vasovagal dysfunction. Vagus nerve is a nerve in your brain, in your body, that sends a lot of messages from your gut to your brain and back and forth. If you have SIBO, it's because the ileocecal valve way down here, where your ileum dumps into your cecum, your colon, that can be another valve, just like the top of the stomach is a valve. So if that doesn't get closed off, then you can have a leakage of that bacteria into that environment. And they're different acidities, different pHs. So I can tell you this gets way too weird and nerdy if we get too far into it. But so now we get past the stomach, we get into the small intestine, and we'll talk about the junction between the small intestine and the colon. So that's the ileocecal valve. So that's another structural issue. And you can literally do what's called visceral manipulation to affect the ileocecal valve, just like you can adjust the stomach by doing visceral manipulation to pull the stomach back down, reset the tone on the diaphragm to help that. The small intestine is a pretty complex environment. In Chinese medicine, we think about the small intestine a lot about acceptance, talking about the neuroemotional side of things, acceptance in the small intestine. Anger and frustration can be commonly affecting that. Each bacteria, mold, fungus, parasite, or virus can have a different challenge as it relates to that. So we don't have time to go into all of these because we'd be here for a couple years. So I'll spare Anissa that pain and you that struggle to try and understand it all. But that's what we do on a daily basis, help people understand why their symptoms are there. So what the symptom is, where it's coming from, how to get rid of it, how to never have it again. So that's our purpose in life, is to help you. So when we think about the small intestine, think about a bunch of things, right? If the acidity level is not right because the stomach's not dumping the right contents in the small intestine, that's going to throw off your bacterial balance there. So that's where a lot of SIBO is allowed to flourish. So when H. pylori is active in the stomach, it can contribute to SIBO. But you can have things like strep and staph and parasites and other things, molds and funguses affecting the small intestine. If, let's just say, the liver is dumping really, really bad bile down the common bile duct, which ends up dumping in the small intestine, that can create bloating because you have now the gallbladder picking up really bad bad bile from the liver, and when it creates really thick, super concentrated soap and it dumps that into your small intestine, if it's really junky soap, it's not going to break down the fat that you're eating. Now you have fats in your small intestine that are like putrefying, and putrefying fat, it just doesn't sound good. Like, ugh, putrefy, that sounds horrible. So now you have a couple of strikes against you. You got your proteins aren't being digested because your stomach's not burning hot enough because you have H. pylori or something in your stomach, and that's not being digested well. Now that's dumping in your small intestine. Now you got all these garbage bile acids being dumped into your small intestine from your liver and your gallbladder, so it's not breaking down your fats. So now you got fats and proteins in your gut, right? And that's going to allow other things to flourish. Like, again, we got mold and fungus, we got all kinds of parasites and things like that. Viruses, there's like viral gastroenteritis, but that's not as common as we've seen as far as molds and funguses and bacteria and parasites affecting the small intestine. But understand how this all works together, right? Your digestive system is a very complex set of upstream and downstream things, a lot of chemical messengers going back and forth to the brain. So if we want to talk about the the tension in the diaphragm can also affect the liver and gallbladder because they're very closely aligned. But even like an injury on this side of the body can cause dysfunction in the liver and gallbladder. But, we think about the liver and gallbladder, and it's about anger and frustration, resentment, disappointments, starvation complexes, territorial conflicts, and stuff like that. So that's kind of the neuroemotional side with the structural side, and then you got the biochemical with the bile acids and the parasites, and again, another topic for another day. We could talk about it for hours, but that gives you an idea of another step in the digestive system. So now you got all these fats and proteins that aren't broken down, junky biles, parasites and molds and funguses in the small intestine, and it just becomes this chain reaction. So now we're working down from the duodenum to the jejunum to the ileum and then out to the cecum and stuff like that, and this whole wind. Okay, so now let's just say we're going to dump the contents of the small intestine into the colon. And we got that ileocecal valve that's not working really well. Maybe we got some inflammation in the gut because we're so stressed out that we're not holding enough water in the colon, so we're not softening the stool. So then the stool's sitting there, and our body's recirculating toxins and pulling them back out of the colon and stuff like that. Now we're constipated, right? We got a bunch of inflammation. Our intestines are all squeezed like this because they're so pissed off because we got so much garbage in our guts that they're not holding on to things, right? So now they're not able to squeeze. So think about the cecum up this way and down and around and out. That's how your colon runs, right? 25 to 33 feet of small intestine right here, dumps out into the colon, which colon goes ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoid, and then the rectum goes out the chute. There's a lot of different areas of that can be affected. You got the valves of Houston, you got the colitis, so you can have ulcerative colitis, you can have diverticulitis, because we all have these little things. Diverticuli in our body, when they get inflamed, it's called diverticulitis. It's a fancy name for inflamed diverticuli. You can have twisted bowels. You can have infarct bowels, which means colon gets so squeezed off, it gets parts of it dies off. These are a lot of nasty things can happen in your colon. But when we think about the colon, we're thinking about deep down dirty issues, ugly issues, feeling soiled at some point in life, feeling defective, or just basically just not like a self-devaluating complex. That's kind of the neuroemotional side of the colon. We talked about the inflammation. Some people pass tapeworms, ropeworms, flukes, plumes of mold and fungus out of their colon into the toilet and stuff like that. So I would encourage you to get curious about your stools, right? Take a look. When you're done, just peek around, see what's in there. Some people have indigested food. Some people have worms. Some people have flukes. Some people have mold and fungus. It just depends on what it is. But you can tell a lot about your intestinal health by what you see in the toilet, based on the smell, the size, the shape, and things like that. We have a Bristol stool chart, and this I can scan over here. We do the Vanna White here. You can look up the Bristol stool chart in Google Images or something like that. Basically, we like to float between 3 and 4. Nice, like a garden hose, snake sausage kind of thing. 2 dehydrated up here is like little rabbit turds or collections of rabbit turds in a little log. Maybe like a Pearson's nut roll, just to gross you out a little bit here, right? Then down here, it's like these soft, fluffy blobs, or even just straight liquid, which your body's just trying to dump everything out at the same time. So, a lot of different things we can consider here as far as how to understand the health of your stool. Excuse me. So I would encourage you to consider looking at that if you ever have curiosity about what your stool is doing and what it's telling you about what's going on. We don't necessarily encourage you to send us pictures of your stool, but if you have a question about your stool, like I'm seeing this, or I saw that, or I'm curious about that, let us know. We'll give you the best guidance we can based on what you're dealing with, and we'll help you in that direction. But you can have a bowel obstruction, like say you get so dehydrated that your stool starts getting packed up like a pile of little, your rabbit turds over here, and it gets blocked in your colon. Your body might attempt to flush it out by dumping a bunch of liquid into your colon to loosen it up, but it might just go around the sides of it, and then you have this bowel obstruction. And so some older gentlemen could have prostate issues because there's so much pressure on the prostate, because the rectal wall and the prostate are right close to each other. Plus, if you're recycling toxins out of your colon because you're not pooping, that can end up collecting toxins in the prostate, things like that. There's a whole lot of fun stuff that can go along with this. But your urogenital health can be affected by your colon health. So when you think about this whole process going through here, it's really complex from a 10,000-foot view, and you can break it down into different parts. But if you're looking at your overall digestive health, it's not enough to say that, I did a stool sample and they didn't find any parasites. Well, we all carry parasites. I don't care who you are. We all have them. If you've walked barefoot in the grass, if you've eaten an undercooked piece of meat, if you had sushi at any point in your life, if you had an animal, cat, dog, horse, pig, goat, whatever you've played with on the farm, you have parasites because they're everywhere. They're tiny. You can't even see them. So they get into your system. If they're in balance, they're not a problem, right? So if a parasite were a problem, it might be because you're feeling neglected, you're not feeling important in someone's life. Could be, if it's T. Gandhi, someone's driving you crazy, someone's making you crazy, you're not getting what you want in life. Some of the neuroemotional stress is related to that. We could go into Giardia and other things like that, but always understand that if you have a symptom, there's a reason behind it. And we always say in the absence of trauma, there's some type of stress going on in your life. So if you haven't been in a car accident, fallen off a roof, fallen off your bike, something like that, had an injury to a tissue, the problem is typically almost exclusively coming from the inside, and that could be starting at the brain and ending up in the body. Could be a body issue reflecting back to the brain and things like that. It just depends. So always understand that there are answers to your questions. Things don't have to be a mystery. If you're ever curious, send us an IM, DM, whatever they call them, PM, some type of message on your phone or on your Facebook. We'll answer that question for you as far as give you a general idea. We can help guide you on that process, but it doesn't have to be so confusing. It doesn't have to be so daunting, and don't let these bugs scare you, right? You have about 75 trillion human cells, and you have 750 trillion bacteria, molds, funguses, parasites, and viruses living in and on you. And when you understand that, you can say, okay, so they outnumber me by tenfold. Okay, it's kind of scary at first. We're like, wow, that means I'm 10% human and I'm 90% bug. Whatever. I mean, here's a fun fact for you. If you took every human being on this planet and crushed it down into one mass, we're basically the size of a pea. Because even though this feels solid, we're almost all exclusively air and water. Okay? Bones are hollow. We're 80% water anyway. You squish this all down. When everything squirts out the side, we're just a mass of a pea. Okay? It's pretty cool. So when you think about that, don't let these bugs scare you, because if your mind is clear and your brain is not stressed and you don't have any injuries, the bugs aren't the problem. It's really the problem of addressing the stress in your life. And I know I sound like a broken record, and here I go again. No one thing causes any one thing, and it's just chuckling away because she's waiting for me to tattoo it on my arm or something. Forehead, yeah, so everybody can read it. But always understand that there are multiple facets to every challenge we face, and what we want to appreciate is that there are answers to your questions and to your mysteries. They don't have to be, they don't have to seem so daunting. Like it's well postulated that most cancers are a bunch of garbage trapped behind a biofilm, and it's an underlying infection your body is trying to wall off and kill off. So doing things like, as a bare minimum, doing digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid are really critical, because our bodies were designed for raw food when we used to be hunter-gatherers before we became industrialized with agriculture and stuff like that. But now our guts are not wired for raw food to the great extent. They need to be steamed or lightly boiled or something like that. But because we cook all our food, we kill off a lot of enzymes, so we need to add enzymes in. Because we have so much stress in our life, our stomach acid gets squashed, so we want to bring in stomach acid. For those of you who cannot tolerate stomach acid, like extra hydrochloric acid, you need to heal your gut lining. So you'd want to look at balancing your microbiome against H. pylori or other bacteria, things like that, using things like gastrovin tea to heal that gut lining, reestablish the mucous membrane on the inside of your stomach. That would be beneficial. Using complex homeopathy to balance your microbiome in your gut, using things like galactin fiber. Butyrate is a really good one to help restore leaky gut and stuff like that, because what can happen is sometimes our gut lining, or the inside of our garden hose, looks like a bunch of Swiss cheese, and things get from our digestive system into our bloodstream, and then it comes out on your skin and things like that, and liver's dumping garbage out and it comes out our skin, because our skin's our biggest organ that we can see. That's helpful. Butyric acid, butyrate. There's a lot of different things you can do. I mean, literally, that's why there's 1,000 things out on the shelf out there, because you never know what someone's going to need. And as a result, we need to be able to be very specific. It's not good enough to just go down to CVS or out down to GNC or the Vitamin Shop and whatever like that, or even over here in Woodbury TaylorMade and say, hey, this looks good, it could possibly benefit me. If I could tell you how many people brought in grocery bags of stuff that they purchased in the hopes that they were going to help themselves, then, I mean, it's unbelievable. And what you always want to honor is you're doing your best you can, and that's all you need to know, okay? So when you need someone to get you to the next level, you need someone to help you and decipher these clues. So whether you need extra fiber for your digestive system, whether you need to calm down your adrenals and get rid of some stress in your life so your body holds on to more water and puts it more in your colon to soften your stool to help you poop better, there's all these different aspects of your digestive system that I've had to study to understand it, but you don't have to understand it, because you can be like, dude, just get me from A to Z, okay? I don't really care about B, C, D, and F, and G. Okay? People they want to cut their timeline down to 0, right? As fast as you can. Skip the guesswork. So for you, when you have questions, call, email, text, message us. Come in, get evaluated. It's not like a lifelong thing. People do this all the time. Like their wheels came off the bus, right? You got to get the wheels back on, get the alignment right, get them headed in the right direction, then they're off and running again. It's like a bird who gets their wing injured. They come in to the shelter, they get fixed up, they get released back to the wild. That's really what it's about. So same thing can happen for you. It does not require like lifetime care. It just get yourself fixed up, get some tools, help you learn what your body needs as far as your specific patterns, so you can be empowered in the future and to help yourself. Okay? Let us know what your questions are. This is really important. Like I said, I could take any one of these areas and expand on them infinitesimally, which means there's no stopping point. We go on and on and on, because every human being's different. And then this is like, oh dear God, don't do it. So we're not going to do that. But we're here to help you. We're a resource for you. Let us know how we can help. Let us know what topics you're interested in learning about, so we can make this beneficial for you, because you might have a specific condition. And I'm happy to speak about specific conditions in generalities, nothing of course specific, because there's HIPAA laws and things like that. But we're happy to provide that information. If for some reason you have a condition and you would love to be on camera, and you want to come in and say, hey, you can evaluate me on camera, come on in. I'll work you up as long as you sign off and say, I'm okay having my face and my story on the internet, that's fine. We'll work you up, and you can have that benefit. We're happy to do that, because then everybody else can benefit from your experiences. So let us know. We'll do our best to help you. The key to your healing lies within your body. That's why we always trust in the innate intelligence that lives within your body, because if I think I'm smarter than the intelligence that brought a sperm and egg together and created you, I'm an idiot, right? I'm a complete idiot, because there's more intelligence in your body that knows what you need to heal than I could ever read in a book or take in a class. So we are humble enough here to say your body knows best, so we use that information, and we help guide you along that path. Doctor means teacher, so whoever you work with, make sure they're teaching you how to help yourself. Make sure you get a good pit crew, a good cheerleading team, and a good support staff that can help you. We have the best in the business here. The ladies are the best ever. They will guide you on your path, make sure you have everything you need, and get you to the next level. So for now, I'll sign off, but next week, let us know what you want us to talk about, because I'm looking for ideas all the time, because I want this to be relevant for you, not just me sitting here talking about parasites and mold and fungus and stuff like that. Okay, so we will see you next week for the Ones of Wellness, guys. Take good care. Bye-bye.